The world watches as Gaza remains under siege. Israel's military campaign in Gaza faces growing anger. Global leaders are voicing deep concerns. The situation has reached a critical point. Many are calling for immediate action. The pressure on Israel is visibly mounting daily. The humanitarian impact is truly catastrophic. Civilians are bearing the heaviest burden. The scale of suffering is immense. This has prompted widespread international condemnation. Governments are demanding accountability. The calls for peace are growing louder. Finding a resolution is more urgent than ever. Key Western allies have now spoken forcefully. The United Kingdom, France, and Canada issued a joint statement. Their message to Israel was unmistakably clear and direct. They condemned the ongoing military operations. They also condemned the restrictive blockade on Gaza. This marks a significant diplomatic development. These nations are traditional allies of Israel. The leaders expressed profound alarm and concern. They highlighted the dire humanitarian situation. They called Israel's minimal aid allowance wholly inadequate. The joint statement demanded an immediate halt to the actions. The world is watching Israel's response closely and attentively. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is catastrophic. After nearly 3 months of a complete blockade, Israel permitted a very small amount of aid. Only 5 trucks were mentioned in one instance. The needs of the people are overwhelming now. The United Nations described this aid as grossly insufficient. Gaza requires a minimum of 500 aid trucks daily. 2 million residents are trapped in this crisis. The World Health Organization has issued stark warnings. Shortages of food are widespread and severe. Medical supplies are also critically depleted. The survival of Gaza's people hangs precariously. Section 4. Echoes of condemnation. The global chorus grows. A broad coalition of countries is speaking out. The international community is uniting in an unprecedented manner, showing a rare moment of global solidarity. Leaders from various continents are coming together to voice their concerns and demand action. Over 20 nations have added their voices. This growing list includes countries from every corner of the globe, each bringing their unique perspectives and demands to the table. These include Australia and Japan. Both nations have been particularly vocal, emphasizing the need for immediate humanitarian relief and a long-term resolution to the crisis. Many members of the European Union are also involved. The EU has been a strong advocate for peace and stability, pushing for diplomatic solutions and increased humanitarian aid. They demand a full lifting of the blockade. The blockade has been a major point of contention, with many arguing that it exacerbates the humanitarian crisis and hinders peace efforts. Humanitarian organizations must operate freely. These organizations play a crucial role in providing life-saving assistance, and their work should not be impeded by political barriers. Humanitarian aid should never be politicized. The primary focus should always be on alleviating human suffering and ensuring that those in need receive the help they require. The EU has been vocal in its concern. European leaders have consistently called for an end to hostilities and for all parties to come to the negotiating table. Various EU bodies have issued strong statements. These statements reflect a unified stance on the need for peace and the protection of human rights. The United Nations has been consistently critical. The UN has highlighted the dire humanitarian situation and called for immediate action to address the crisis. Secretary General Antonio Guterres has repeatedly called for a ceasefire. His appeals underscore the urgent need for a cessation of violence and the start of meaningful dialogue. Public opinion worldwide is largely sympathetic to Gazans. People around the world are expressing their support through protests, social media campaigns, and public demonstrations. The global chorus for change is undeniable. This collective voice is calling for justice, peace, and a better future for all those affected by the conflict. Section 5. The weight of inaction, criticisms, and calls for justice. This section delves into the growing discontent and the urgent calls for justice that have emerged in response to the ongoing crisis. Criticism is also directed at the international community. Many believe that global leaders and institutions have not done enough to address the situation effectively. Many argue the response has been too slow. The delay in taking decisive action has only exacerbated the suffering and prolonged the conflict. Francesca Albanese is the UN Special Rapporteur. She has been a vocal critic of the international community's handling of the crisis. She focuses on the occupied Palestinian territories. Her work highlights the dire conditions and the urgent need for intervention. Albanese has been particularly outspoken on this. She has consistently called for immediate and concrete actions to alleviate the suffering of the people in these regions. She stated that earlier intervention was vital. According to her, timely actions could have mitigated much of the current devastation and loss of life. It could have prevented the current catastrophe. The scenes of destruction and the plight of the affected people are a stark reminder of the consequences of inaction. Albanese emphasized the need for immediate action. She has urged the international community to step up and take responsibility. Tangible measures are required now, she urged. Diplomatic efforts and agreements must translate into real, on-the-ground changes. International law must be upheld robustly. The principles of justice and human rights cannot be compromised. Human rights must be protected without fail. The global community has a moral obligation to ensure that these rights are respected and upheld. The calls for accountability are growing stronger. People around the world are demanding that those responsible for the crisis be held accountable. The world demands answers and adherence to law. The collective voice of humanity is calling for justice, and it cannot be ignored any longer. Section 6. Operation Gideon's Chariots, Escalation and its Toll. Israel has intensified its military actions. A new ground offensive is underway. It has been codenamed Gideon's Chariots. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remains defiant. He has vowed to seize large areas of Gaza. This escalation has led to a horrific spike in casualties. Reports indicate hundreds killed in recent days. Entire families have been tragically wiped out. The total death toll is staggering. Prime Minister Netanyahu has addressed the aid issue. He stated Israel plans to control Gaza. While doing so, it will allow minimal aid. The international community watches in horror. Section 7. A turning tide, policy shifts and future implications. The current global response may signal a turning point. Across various nations, people are taking to the streets, voicing their concerns and demanding change. This grassroots movement is gaining momentum and could influence policy decisions at the highest levels. The strong joint statements from world leaders are significant. These declarations are not just words, they represent a unified stance that could lead to concrete actions. The international community is watching closely. The warnings of potential sanctions are noteworthy. Such measures could have far-reaching consequences, affecting not just the targeted nations but also the global economy. The stakes are incredibly high. This is especially true coming from Western allies. Their influence and economic power mean that their decisions carry significant weight. The unity among these nations is a critical factor in the unfolding scenario. Countries like the UK, France, and Canada are pivotal. Their historical roles and current political clout make them key players in this evolving situation. Their actions could set precedents for others to follow. Their stance reflects a potential shift. This change in attitude could lead to new alliances and partnerships, reshaping the geopolitical landscape. The implications are vast and complex. They seem more willing to hold Israel accountable. This marks a significant departure from previous policies and could lead to increased scrutiny and pressure on the Israeli government. This could be a new phase in international policy. The dynamics are shifting, and the traditional power structures are being questioned. This period of change could lead to a more balanced and fair approach to international relations. Increased diplomatic isolation is a clear risk. Countries that do not align with the new policies may find themselves increasingly isolated on the global stage. This could lead to a realignment of international alliances. Economic pressure from sanctions could be damaging. The impact on local economies could be severe, leading to job losses and social unrest. The ripple effects could be felt worldwide. The Israeli government faces difficult choices. Balancing domestic pressures with international demands will be a complex and challenging task. The decisions made now will have long-term consequences. For Gaza, the implications are equally significant. The humanitarian situation remains dire, and any changes in policy could either alleviate or exacerbate the suffering of its people. This crisis demands a new approach from all. The international community must come together to find sustainable solutions. The future depends on the actions taken today.